Good afternoon, technically. I'm joined today by, to my immediate right, we have Sarah Feinberg, who's the president of the New York City Transit Authority. To her right, we have Pat Foy, who's the president and CEO of the MTA. To my far left, Mike Copey, who's the director of the governor's office of emergency management. To my left is Rick Cotton, who's the executive director of Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. We will talk about the weather today, not because we don't have anything better to talk about, but because the weather is the topic to talk about. It is very dangerous out there, and I just drove down from Albany. I can tell you firsthand, it is seriously dangerous, and there is no reason to be out on the roads, and it's only going to get worse. The roads are dangerous all across the metropolitan area. The roads, even in Manhattan, are dangerous and impassable at points, and a lot of people are getting stuck already. What you see is a lot of purple. It's going to be a statewide storm. It's a nor'easter that's been coming up the shores. I'm sure everybody has been watching. It makes it more difficult for us when it's statewide, because normally we deploy assets around the state. We'll bring assets from upstate to help downstate, downstate to help upstate. When it's statewide, obviously, we have to protect across the entire state. But you're seeing in the New York City metropolitan area 18 to 24 inches. You're seeing some pockets in the state upwards of 36 inches. So this is going to be a significant issue for us on a number of levels. When it's a snowstorm, you want to look at the rate that the snow is falling. This snowstorm is predicted to do over 2 inches per hour. Why is that relevant? Snow plows cannot keep up with 2 inches per hour, which means even if you deploy all the plows in frequency, you can't keep the roads clear at 2 inches per hour. So it's the rate of snowfall, it's the total accumulation, which is problematic in this case. 12 to 18 inches is a lot of snow, and the duration of the storm is a problem, because this is not a band that's going to last a few hours. This is a band that could affect the state through tomorrow night. So we're looking at a long 2 days here. I've declared a state of emergency for 44 counties in New York State, basically all the counties outside of Western New York. State of emergency has a number of consequences, but from a citizen point of view, if you are not an essential worker, you should not be on the roads when there's a state of emergency. And again, just from a safety practicality point of view, you should not be on the roads, period. There are going to be a number of suspensions and a number of closings. We want people to be aware of that. We said this morning, stay home, and there may be rail and road closings. So if you leave the house, you may not be able to get back. But let me give you an update on that at this point. And first, let me go to Sarah Feinberg to talk about the New York City Transit Authority. Sarah?
Okay, thanks, Governor. So we continue to operate both underground and above ground service for now, but conditions continue to deteriorate, and so therefore we will suspend outdoor subway service starting at 2 p.m. But to be clear, people should start planning that now. So if you are not home and you need to get home, you need to start making your way there now. We want to get to 2 p.m., but don't wait for that last train that's going to service the outdoor portions. On buses and on outdoor service, we will obviously reopen as soon as it's safe to do so, but it's a little unclear on when that will be. And so we'll play that by ear and obviously keep letting people know through our app and through our other service announcements when we think we might be able to reopen. But plan for a 2 p.m. closure of outdoor above ground service. Underground service will continue to operate if we have to. Obviously, we can stop that as well, and we have every contingency plan in place, but for now, we are not planning for that. On buses, we continue to operate because the roads are both passable and visibility is okay for now, but also conditions are deteriorating there as well. And so please plan for us to have to suspend some bus routes at some point in the coming hours. We will, again, message to our customers as we have to suspend service, and we will be focused on restarting service as soon as we possibly can. But as the governor said, if you don't have to be out for essential work, please don't be. Governor?
Okay. Expect possible road closures. The Long Island Expressway could close. The Northern State Parkway could close. I-84 could close. Sprain Parkway, Taconic Parkway, they all could close. Sawmill River Parkway could close. So plan that. We're not closing them at this point, but again, if the storm comes as projected, the plows will not be able to keep up, and we could very well close those roads. So keep that in mind. We'll make an announcement, but again, plan on road closures. So if you're planning on getting home via one of those roadways, I would leave as soon as possible because they could very well close in the next few hours as the snow continues. Let me go to now Patrick Foy, who's the chairman and the CEO of the MTA. The MTA, besides the Transit Authority, runs the bridges, the crossings, the commuter rail, Metro North, Long Island Railroad, et cetera. Patrick Foy?
Thank you, Governor. I'll start with the Governor, the observation that ridership is light across the system. On Metro North, the last Metro North trains to and from Grand Central will leave around 3 p.m. Last Long Island Railroad trains to and from Penn Station and Atlantic Terminal will leave between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. Customers are urged to check mta.info, which will have adjusted schedule information for both Long Island Railroad and Metro North. These trains are expected, in most cases, to reach their final destination by 5 p.m., with the exception of the Metro North train to Wassaic, which will arrive around 6 p.m. Governor, with respect to bridges and tunnels, we have banned empty and tandem tractor trailers. That's been in effect all morning. I'll also note that the upper level of the Verrazano Bridge is closed at this time. We expect it to open later. Again, Governor, customers should check Long Island Railroad, Metro North, Bridges and Tunnels, New York City Transit, mta.info. Thanks, Governor.
Great. Thank you very much, Pat. And now let's turn to Mr. Rick Cotton, the Executive Director of the Port Authority, which runs the airports and terminals. Rick?
Thank you, Governor. As one might expect, the snow and the very high wind gusts have severely affected flights at the airports. Upwards of 90% of flights have been canceled already, and we expect a good percentage of the few remaining flights are likely to be canceled as well. At this point, LaGuardia has suspended operations. All flights there have been canceled. At JFK, operations are similarly fully suspended due to an electrical issue that has arisen due to the weather conditions. Newark is operating but has only 4 flights scheduled to depart, but we expect that those may be canceled as well. With respect to our PATH commuter railroad, that has been operating on a reduced schedule, but it will suspend all operations as of 3 p.m. this afternoon due to the predicted weather. We would ask anyone who is planning to use PATH, they should anticipate that it will no longer be operating trains as of 3 p.m. Thank you, Governor.
Great. I want to thank Pat and Sarah and Rick and Mike Hopi for their great work. Bottom line is, this is a serious situation. It's nothing to be trifled with. Yes, we've had snowstorms before. Yes, we've been through it before. But this is a dangerous, life-threatening situation. And again, expect major closures, so you're not surprised. And we don't want anyone to be stranded in a location where they can't get home again. And that's what you're looking at this afternoon, because it's going to get very bad very quickly. Let me give you a brief update on COVID. Yesterday, the positivity statewide was 4.8. That is actually very good news. That is 24 straight days of decline in what they call the 7-day average. So if you're thinking in terms of the trajectory, the curve, which is what we watch, we had that holiday surge where the numbers went up. Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, New Year's Eve, all that socialization. Numbers went up. Numbers have been coming down since. New Yorkers did a good job of keeping that number down low. Many other states, the infection rate went higher, and they're in serious trouble. I think it's evidence of the fact that New Yorkers get it, and New Yorkers care about each other, and they've been smart. But that number continues to drop. We had 141 people pass away yesterday, and they are in our thoughts and prayers. And these are numbers, but remember, they're not just numbers. It's 141 deaths. That's 140 families. That's hundreds of people who are grieving today because they lost a loved one. That's hundreds of nurses and doctors who are again working in hospitals after a horrific year, and still rise to the challenge every day. Among the statewide numbers, highest positivity is Long Island, 6.1. Mid-Hudson is next at 6.03. New York City is 5.1. It's not in the top third. It's about in the middle of the 10 regions, New York City, but it's 5.1. In New York City, the Bronx is still the highest, 6.6. Next is Queens at 5.4. So it's the Bronx is significantly higher than any other borough in New York City, and that is problematic, obviously. Vaccinations, we've done about 1.96 million, so we're coming up to the 2 million mark. On the vaccinations, those that were scheduled for today or tomorrow in state-run facilities, they're going to be postponed. I know how hard it is to get an appointment. I know people will say, I had an appointment finally. Is it really going to get rescheduled? It's really going to get rescheduled in any state-run facility. So if you had an appointment, it will be rescheduled at a state-run facility. Overall, with COVID, vaccinations, it's just a question of supply, and it's a question of international supply and national supply. It's not really a supply issue, it's really a production issue. How many drugs can Pfizer, Moderna, any other manufacturers that they approve, how many can they provide? How many can they produce? How many can they make? Then how many does the United States purchase? And they then distribute to states by population. We are basically exhausting our week-to-week allocation, waiting for more supply from the federal government. And we have much more distribution in place than we have supply. There are 7 million people who are eligible for the vaccine. 7 million. When you add up the hospital workers, the healthcare workers, 65 plus population. That's 7 million people in New York City, in New York State. It's about half of the entire eligible population in the state is now eligible. But we only get 300,000 doses per week. That's the disconnect and the confusion and the tension. 7 million people looking for a vaccine, you only get 300,000 per week. So we're very careful about how we give out the doses. We give them out proportionately by population of an area. We then give them out proportionately among hospital workers, essential workers, and 65 plus by their percentage of the population. and the providers have select groups they're giving. But I understand the frustration. I've spoken to hundreds of people who said, I'm eligible, but I can't get it. I sit at a computer and just keep hitting the refresh button looking for a vaccination. I get it. That is a situation created by the federal government initially, and it is a national problem and an international problem, that there's just not enough vaccine. And I know the Biden administration is working very hard on that. They have made progress. I believe they're going to make more progress as we go forward here. But whatever we get, we will distribute. And we'll distribute it as soon as we get it. We just have to get it. Overall on COVID, the numbers are coming down. New Yorkers are careful. Even places that were highly problematic in the state are now coming down. The only question mark, what is a potential problem? If one of these strains, these variants, a new term, variants of interest, one of these strains, these new variants, hits and is problematic, you could see that curve change. And that's just a question mark. Nobody can answer that question. I speak regularly with the best health experts globally, because this is not a state problem, it's not a city problem, it's not even a national problem. It's a global problem. And nobody knows, nobody can tell you definitively what the mutation of this virus will be. UK strain, Brazilian strain, South Africa strain, no one can tell you how fast it will take off. The UK strain is problematic. The CDC has said it would be a predominant strain, and it is more transmittable. But we'll know when we encounter it, and whatever we encounter, we will be ready to manage. But right now, that number is headed in the right direction. So congratulations to New Yorkers, because you make it happen, one way or the other. It's what New Yorkers do. How we act determines how that virus spreads. And bringing down that line, bringing down that surge, that's all due to the good work of New Yorkers. And I thank you, and I'm proud to be a New Yorker.